the harp. Most of you will know that the harp is considered to be the oldest string instrument known to man, and every single one of the great ancient civilizations used the harp in their sacred and religious rituals. But the question is this: who brought the harp to Ireland?
These the pigs.
Why was the original flag of Ireland a very pale blue background with a harp as the centre point? Why did the Irish hold it so close to their hearts when it was banned and outlawed by our English aggressors in more recent times? And how did it evolve and gain its characteristic size and shape? The ancient annals and manuscripts of Ireland describe in great detail the early invasions of Inishbal, or the Island of Destiny as our country is known. All of the people who sought refuge, all of the early settlers who sought refuge on our shores had strong cultural and religious ties to the harp. The very first people to seek refuge in Ireland were Casair, who is the granddaughter of Noah, who arrived 40 days before the biblical flood engulfed the then known world. The next settlers to arrive in Ireland were Partholon and his people, followed by the Nemedians, the Fir Bolg. That included the Fir Dowan and the Galleon. Next we had the Tuatha De Danann, and finally we had the Gael. While all the time the Fomorian or the Sea Rovers challenged the settlers from their watery empire. The Scythians, the Egyptians and the Hebrews, who together formed the triad of early settlers in Ireland, have all historically recorded cultural ties to the harp, as did Noah's great-granddaughter from ancient Sumer. Each of the settlers have a story to tell about the harp. The Scythians and their princess Scotia lent their name to the Scots. The people of Gael Glass lent their name to the Gaels. And three beautiful princesses, Éire, Bamba and Fulla, each lent their names and title to our country. Our rich cultural legacy is well recorded in the oral tradition of the Éachdóna, Nahuillis and the Fili, and it wasn't until in Tudor times that the policies of surrender and rebrand brought the demise of the harp as the oral chronicler of our history. What is so remarkable about the power of the harp from our ancient records that we hold is that harpers, at the height of their powers in the country, were proficient in three particular styles of music. And Eamon's music here today has been absolutely beautiful. The three classes of music that an Irish harper had to be proficient in were called Gultréige, Giantréige, or Soonstréige. Gultréige was music that was so powerful that anyone who listened to it would end up crying their hearts out. Soonstréige was music that was so beautiful and so quiet and so peaceful in its nature that it would cause anyone who listened to it to fall into a very deep sleep. And the last of the proficiencies was Giantréige, and that was music that would make you fall asunder from laughter and render you helpless. So you can see the richness and the wealth that the harp had in our ancient culture, and the power that the person who played the harp and held the knowledge of the harp, their power within our society was so strong that when Daniel O'Connell, at the passing of the Emancipation Act, he brought a harper with him, and the two of them travelled down through the streets of Dublin together. So, I'll finish with a very short poem. Mute the harp and lost the magic art that roused to rapture each Malaysian heart. In cold and rust the lifeless strings decay, and all their soul of song has but died away.
I'll just explain a few look at the GAA took off the sovereign seal and airlocked the medal in 2008. They said
Of study mythology, it wouldn't affect anything. It's the five streams. The Fenian Brotherhood was the sister organisation of the Irish Republican Brotherhood. And look at what happened to the banks since the 4th of September 2008. They couldn't claim sovereignty here today because they don't have a licence. And look what happened to the factories. Look what happened to the people. And they replaced it with the symbol of the serpent. That is how you look at, that's the Psaltery Anno Domini 2012, and you put it up to the light and you see the heart of the Psaltery. And if you want to, that's the sunship, carrying the sun. This is how Tutankhamun built his empire and built the pyramids of Egypt. With all that knowledge, that's your measuring tape, your thumb line, your straight edge, you divide it in two is how they built the pyramids. And that's the blueprint for the curragh. The strings are become the lats, and that's for the Atlantic Ocean, the keel. And that's the heart of the Psaltery. That is what grows the sunship, that's what grows all our bio and biomass. And that the harpship controls all the cycles of life and all the time. If you want to construct a wheel, that's the feathers of the wheel, the strings become the spokes, and that's the eye. You tread the eye with knowledge, you tread the eye with light, you tread the eye with the axle so man can rule the world. That's the pyramids. Everywhere I turn that, a man learned to weave his cloth. All the grid and the graph, all the Celtic designs, they're all there on that. And all European civilization comes from that. I don't want to hold you up too long, but geography, mathematics, science. And if you take Ptolemy and Copernicus and all those, you see Egypt had a 12-month calendar. We only had the winter and summer solstice, and so many days to grow our food. And Easter Sunday is the most important day in the Roman Catholic Church. And if you go to Termini to Rome, you'll see the eye up in the Basilica. And when the light shines through that eye, it's Easter Sunday after the first full moon for the whole world. Well, Copernicus was the one who mathematically worked that out. And if you see the string and the eye, that's the sun box and the sound box, how Newgrange was constructed. And I've just told you how they can determine the date for Easter Sunday. And you see it in old churches. You see the saint of that day. The light will rise and will shine through that. And that was the mathematics rule. It's also the abacus, how men learn to count, how men learn to write. You know, everything you want to see on that is there on that for that information. And that's why we shouldn't lose it. You know, and we should honor it. That's given to us. You know, we don't want anybody to go back to BC, but what we have is what we got from our ancestors. And it's interpreted with the four elements, earth, air, fire and water, man's intellect and reason, and his five senses. That's the first 9 strings. It's written in Om, which is the first string, the first structured language of mankind. The second is hieroglyphics. And they wrote that way, but today we write in this direction, and we count in this direction. And all that information is there. And all I'm saying is that we should be respectful of that. That comes from our ancestors, and they're always written. You know how, you know when I do that from the rising sun, which is east, that's 12 noon, and that's west. So you have the compass, you have the wheel, you have the sundial, the light and shade. That's all we have on planet Earth. And that's all interpreted, all for us by our ancestors, and we shouldn't forget it. And there's a child there, and you're very welcome to be here, and you should know all that information. When you take a coin out of your pocket, you can even tell your parents about it today. And when you take the coin out of your pocket, that Ernest Blythe put 14 strings on, put it up to the mirror, and you see the heart of the Psaltery. And as I said, you know, the Old Testament couldn't have been written for us, or the Bibles, and that was the interpretation of that. But it's crucially important that we know these and how to interpret them. And the eye, of course, is very important. You know, when you go to Newgrange, or if you go to Lochlara, to the old range, you see the Clock and Tarshig is there, and the Rana Crandub, which is the Tree of Life pattern. And you see the bees, that's the harp sign, and that's the female harp sign, and that's the male one. And that's the sunship, and that's the moonship. And that's how all life here is created. That's your being, that's your 4 elements. And it's good to know that. So that's the end of our sermon. I'd like to thank the Lord Mayor very much for the talk. And I'd like to thank John and James, and I'd like to thank all of you citizens. It's your sovereignty. You look after it and hand it on to the next generation. In all European civilization comes from that. Europe came across Rome, right up. We still have it, and we have it intact before it went to America. And we should be proud of what we have. And that's what the volunteers gave their lives. To put that up for you today, that you and your passport, your title deeds, where would you go without your passport? You know? And I think they were great people. And there we are. They were the people who gave their lives. And that's the sovereign Trinity. And that's also tells us my family voted in 1917 to implement all that in the 1916 proclamation.
Yes. First of all, just about the organisation of today, it's an awkward thing to organise because this room is so small and there's only a limit to how many people we can get into it. So it's not possible. You want to get as many people to come, but then that means leaving some people outside. So what I'm suggesting is that we do a rotation and let some people out in so we can get as many people in through the seal as possible. This house, the mansion house, and this room is very historic and very important in our country and in our city's history. It was built in 1710 and became the Lord Mayor's house in 1715. So it was built 302 years ago and became the Lord Mayor's house 297 years ago. It's the oldest Lord Mayor's residence in Britain or in Ireland, and like a lot of good ideas, shortly after we took on the idea, London followed suit. I like to think that I was involved with the council who proposed the Dublin bike scheme, and shortly after we brought it in, Boris brought his bikes into London. But this room here, the importance of this room here is this is the room where the first Irish cabinet met. The Dáil met in the round room, which isn't open to the public anymore, it's not open to me anymore. But this room is where the cabinet met, and that first Irish cabinet that met here on the 21st of January in 1919, the president of the Dáil was Cathal Brugha. The Minister for Foreign Affairs was Count Noble Plunkett. The Minister for Finance was Owen MacNeill. The Minister for Defence was Richard Mulcahy. And the Minister for Home Affairs was Michael Collins. And as you know, 2 years later, at the war the civil war that broke out, different people took different sides in that. And Cathal Brugha was shot in the leg and he bled to death and he died on what became then known as Cathal Brugha Street. And Michael Collins, as you know, was shot at Bale in the Blow. He was shot on the head. The other three survived and lived to a ripe old age and died in natural causes later on. So this house is very important in our history, and as much as possible we try to make it open to people and come in, and I want to get as many people in as I can, but within it's also a delicate room, so I can't cram it and pipe it full because this is the table that cabinet sat at, and we just have to be careful with all the historic items. So I think what we can do now is maybe have a turnaround and get them in.
Just say a few words. He's a historian, Dr. Owen McGuire at Irelend University. I'd like to say something on that.
Thank you, Lydia. Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'll be very brief because, as Lord Mayor said, it's important that the maximum number of people have access to this room on this day, on the occasion that we're all currently observing. As a Dubliner, as an Irish citizen, and as an Irish Republican in the traditional United Irishman, I'm delighted to be here, and I appreciate your invitation once again, Billy, and I congratulate you on your persistence and perseverance in maintaining the traditions and in maintaining the ceremonies of the Irish Public Brotherhood on behalf of the Irish people as a whole. And it's particularly gratifying. I'm somewhat surprised to find that we have a Lord Mayor with such a keen sense of history, a genuine knowledge of history, an appreciation, real appreciation of civic culture. And I think that your forbearance and your generosity today has been well noted by those in attendance. So thank you. I'm not going to impose any more of your time, except to make one very brief point. That the ideals that are being championed here today, revived, if you will, noticed, are very important. And the essential task of marrying civic pride of citizenship to Irish national sovereignty and the essential path of self-determination in this country has never been more acute. We are living in exceptionally dangerous times, And I think that it's particularly important that people have a sense of their history and culture. Now, I came here determined not to make a political speech, but I couldn't stand back without noting one thing. Currently, the subject of history, which I have the privilege to be a practitioner of, in one of our ivory towers as such, that are often held in ill repute, and academic is a term of abuse in some quarters, right? But the subject of history is in danger of being annihilated. And I find this an act of philosophism, an anti-intellectual, a primeval backward step. Surely this is the very time we should be informing ourselves about not the glorious past, but the important Republican democratic heritage and traditions and engine that has brought us to where we have been, where we have currently achieved the state of evolution in Ireland. Now certainly we are in dire trouble, but if anyone ever needed an object lesson in the importance of having sovereignty, we are living through it, and so indeed with my children and yours. This is a very, very perilous times, and I think that throwing the baby out with the bathwater to pay lip service to the notion of improving a potential workforce which is emigrating at an alarming rate, as our country is staggering from one form of dysfunction to another, is not the answer. So in conclusion, there is nothing dangerous or seditious or worrying about us being proud of our past, about using it as an inspiration to go forward to a greater future. So thank you very much.
My name is Anthony O'Doul. I'm with the Wicked Up Again. I'd like to do a big hand for the President, right, yeah, of our association. Thank you all very much for coming. I appreciate that. And I think it's a very good idea that if you leave and let the others just come in and see the office. Thank you.